So I know in keeping with the discussion of the evening, Sherelle, you had a story that you wanted to share with us.
Yes. Okay, so I read an article earlier today about a couple, and both of them qualified for the Olympics. So the young man's name is Hunter Woodall, and he qualified for the 400 meter in the Paralympics. And then his girlfriend, Tara Davis, she qualified for our Tokyo Olympics in the long jump. And the most beautiful thing about this, besides the fact that how often do you get a couple that makes it to that kind of stage, was their support of each other. And I'll go ahead and read y'all what he wrote on Instagram about her making the Olympics. His Instagram post was a picture of them together, and it just said, Tara Lane Davis, you are an Olympian. I am so unbelievably proud of you, not just for what you did out there last night, but for who you are. You have fought through more this year than some do in a lifetime. You deserve this more than anyone, and I am grateful I get to watch you create your legacy. Legacy. And then it says, Tokyo, here we come. That was a beautiful message, but what was even more beautiful was her response. And it just said, baby, I love you so much. I'm so glad you were there to hug me. And that was it. And for me, when I read that, it showed me, because I knew we were going to be talking about balance between the feminine and the masculine. It showed me that at least in that aspect of their relationship that we saw, that they have been able to find that balance. And not to go too deep into what our topic is going to be, but, you know, I'm the one on this call that had to do a little bit more research about the feminine and the masculine, because that's not really where I am, but it's okay. And one thing, because I'm in school right now for massage therapy, so we've been talking about yin and yang, and feminine and masculine. And for yang, which is the masculine, it was doing, and then for yin, for the feminine, it was receiving, or excuse me, giving and receiving. And it struck a chord with me, because I know for myself and a few other females that I know, for that kind of message, it would have been hard for us to respond the way she did with just a simple thank you. Because sometimes we're too critical of ourselves that we can't even accept a compliment like that. So it struck a chord, and I figured I'll go ahead and throw that in there as we have our discussion.
Yeah. It's interesting because she's an athlete, so a lot of female athletes, women athletes, are, you know, very alpha in nature. That poses a question, actually. Would you ladies consider yourselves alpha women?
Yes.
What about you, Ella?
I'm not someone that like toots her horn, you know, but I'm someone that like gets it done behind the scenes, and I got my ABCs lined up, you know, I'm ready to go. But I don't think I'm very outgoing with it, but when something needs to be done, it needs to get high, I'm there. So yeah, and just having that control. Yeah.
And you know, and I think what you're talking about is balance, and balance is so important for a woman to have. I always tell people, because they, you know, people try to pit the two against one another, men against women, and they use masculinity synonymous with men, and femininity synonymous with women, where in reality we are all on the divine, or not the divine, I'm sorry, but the feminine masculine spectrum. So we all have masculine qualities and we all have feminine qualities. It's just we fall in different various places within that spectrum for each person. And generally speaking, biologically speaking, yes, men do tend to fall closer to the masculine side and women to the feminine side. But even that's not the case a lot of times, you know, anymore. And wherever you fall on the spectrum is absolutely okay. It's absolutely divine. And that's just who you are, your uniqueness and how you have manifested that energy into this world. But with that being said, I absolutely consider myself an alpha woman, but I am a feminine alpha woman. So I relate in the same way that you just said, Divinity, because behind the scenes, you know, everybody knows I'm this very business savvy woman. I'm extremely thorough and I get shit done. I'm extremely independent. But I love my feminine side as well. I love being a woman. I love everything about, except the strong emotions sometimes, but I love everything about being a woman and being a divine feminine being at that. So I do personally believe that there is a balance to be achieved between the two. And anyone who is, too feminine is always going to lack certain things that you need for efficiency. Or if you're too masculine, you're going to lack certain things. And that goes for both men and women and, all genders for that matter. So, I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think about the balance of that spectrum between masculinity and femininity, specifically for us as women? I know we're going to get to couples later, but as women, what do you think? What are your thoughts?
Did anybody want to go for it?
I was just going to say one thing, because only you mentioned the alpha woman, and I was thinking to myself, do I consider myself that? I don't really like titles, but it made me think. I had to go online and just look at what is the meaning of an alpha woman, and maybe a lot of people listening might be thinking the same. What is that? I feel like there's a connotation, but do we actually know, like, what is the definition? And so I found a quick definition that said individuals considered leaders in society who occupy the highest positions, such as heads of corporations, senior management, and those that hold political office are often referred to as alpha. They exercise influence over others. They play a lead role in goal setting, goal achievement, the development of a group or organization, and are regarded as leaders by other members of the group. It originates from a field of animal behavior and is used as a descriptor for the highest ranking individual of a social group. So it just goes on to talk about that, it is linked to some more masculine traits, but the traits they mention here are aggression, assertiveness, academic and professional achievement, confidence, being a supervisor or manager, and exhibiting a type A personality. But it also
sounds about right.
It says alpha females have been described as being uninhibitedly feminine and sexy, having a heart, and being a social lubricator.
Yes.
Interesting. You said an alpha woman? That's the definition of an alpha woman specifically?
Well, this is like a whole article about the term alpha female. I'll send it to you guys.
Nice.
Yeah, I definitely identify with that.
Same. So with that being said, do you identify as an alpha woman?
Yeah, I mean, one of my top 3 core values is leadership, and the fact that they kept saying leader, it showed, it affirmed it. Yeah, I always end up the leader of every group, like the one, it mentioned the goal setting, the achievements, it's like, yeah, if it's in you, it's in you, and it's not in everybody. And I think that it's superior. I feel like we need all the people. But I do think it's something that's kind of like, if it's in you, it's in you kind of thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What about you, Sherelle? Do you identify as an alpha woman?
Well, now that she's read the definition, I guess technically I am. I think for me, I think what reserves it for me is that I've never necessarily been known as assertive. Because my assertiveness does not show itself in the traditional way of the term assertive. I like to play with the mind sometimes. So my assertiveness sometimes comes off as me being docile. So
that's the power of the feminine right there. That's the
it is.
That's the subtle manipulation or the subtle.
Absolutely. So I guess what I want to know is how in your personal experiences, how has being an alpha woman, or however you identify as, how has that affected your relationships in this society where we have traditional gender roles? Women are expected to be the submissive woman, and I am a submissive woman. I will say that, but again, I do believe in balance. With that being said, how has it affected your personal relationships?
I got something.
Divinity's like, me first. Me first.
One thing I have learned is not to lose myself in a man, in his masculinity, whatever he's doing. I've learned to honor my divine feminine, my alphaness, and to really just be able to work my magic as who I am. Don't conform to him. Don't mold to that. You know, and be my own leader. I'm the leader of my own spirit, my own world right here. So it was more so about me learning how not to become one, but to be individuals and coexist together.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wow.
I don't like the idea of becoming one with a man, personally. I love
Interesting.
the idea of being my own boss woman, him being his own person, us having our own happiness, him establishing his happiness, me establishing my happiness, my business, all that. And we're coexisting and we're powering through this world together as a interlinked being. So
Absolutely. So how does that work practically speaking? When you come to a head and someone needs to take the lead on a specific situation, do you acquiesce or do you step up and say, no, I got this? Like, how do you approach that
it
practically?
depends on the situation. Most times, you know, I can just chill, be submissive if he's able to handle it with it in like a balanced manner. You know what I'm saying? He's not too over the top. He's not too aggressive, you know, and all that, just depending on what it is. But I will sit back and I'm mostly chill. But when I need to step in, then I 100% will. If it calls for me to, then I will. But I like him to take the lead first. In you
Mhm.
know, in most situations, yes.
Yeah, and that, that brings up, and I know at this point it's probably a cliche, but a lot of men who seem to require, submission from their woman, a lot of them are not qualified to lead in the first place.
Mhm.
Okay.
So it's like, I always say, and this is a huge thing. Black women don't submit to their man and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, how many black women can say they have a man that actually knows how to lead you somewhere other than a ditch? You know what I
Right.
mean? So
Right.
women are not, generally speaking, from the experiences that I've had with women and that I know, women, black women specifically, are not afraid to submit. It's not that we don't want to submit. We actually do want to submit very much. We all, for the most part, like again, generally speaking, we want to be able to rest in our femininity with a man that we can trust. And men seem to think because I'm a man, I'm qualified to lead. No, because what happens if you're in a relationship and there are certain things that you're not qualified to lead in and the woman is? What are you supposed to do then? Am I supposed to acquiesce because you're the man? No. Obviously in that situation, organically, I'm qualified to lead, at least in that area. So when you have a man that is worth leading and that you actually naturally respect and you see his vision and you respect where he's headed with his vision, submission from that point is extremely organic. It's a very natural rollout.
Yes, hands down.
Yes, definitely.
No question. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nah, definitely. I see
And,
that with my mom. With my parents' marriage, I've actually seen that. Because my mom,
really,
anybody that's met my mother, outspoken, the complete opposite of me, if you will. So outspoken, she's gonna speak her mind. She gonna do what she want to do.
mhm.
But one thing growing up, and that's one thing I'm grateful for to grow up with my parents being together, is
Yeah.
she's still her. Like she ain't never gonna change. She always gonna have that mouth.
She
But
shouldn't.
but my
Right.
daddy makes the decisions in this family. But my
Mhm.
dad's been leading her the right way for 40 years.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's all it comes down to, proper leadership. Not everyone, not especially not every man is born a leader. Not no one is, not everyone is born a leader, period. But every man is not automatically a leader just because they're in the masculine, just because
Right.
they're automatically action oriented. So, I mean, how can we find balance in partnerships as an alpha woman?
The first thing that's coming up for me, especially here, is there room for
Partnership.
and like
Ella, I think you're going in and out. Can you guys hear her?
Um, if she
can
say
you hear me
say
now?
something, I hear you. Mhm.
I can hear you now.
Okay, wonderful. So the one thing that keeps coming up, and this is something new to me since I've been going deeper into my studies of masculine energy, like since we're facilitating this journey, is one of the things that the masculine needs is, and this is our masculine energy inside of us and the external masculine, like the masculine needs room for error. And it's like the thing is,
Mm,
just because we need a masculine that is in his leadership energy, doesn't mean that every single time we allow him to lead is going to be perfect, you know?
True.
I was actually like, one of the things that the masculine really needs is room for error. This is what I found. That they need room for error. They need room to make a mistake, and for us to be like, it's okay. Like, I understand. And then not hold it against them and still be willing to lead. Because my question to you is, in your parents' marriage, did you ever see where your dad did mess up? And was she nurturing about it, or was she like, did she get on his ass? Like,
no, that is one thing I've actually never seen. Again, she gonna speak her mind when she speaks her mind. But when it comes to stuff like, you know, making decisions for the household and things like that, when he has messed up, and I will say this, I'm biased. I think my daddy is perfect. I think my dad is a superhero. So it's kind of hard for me to say. But, you know, it's especially like kind of when it comes to emotional things. It's more of, she does it, it sounds weird, but motheringly, you know, in a, not motheringly, nurturing. She does it in a nurturing fashion. And it's never what society has taught us young Black women to believe about, oh, you messed up, that means you're wrong. I will never listen to you again because you messed up that one time. Like, we're perfect, and we're not. So just seeing that, that it's okay if you don't do perfectly. She never held him to an impossible standard. She held him to a high standard, and there's a difference.
Right. Ooh, absolutely.
Yes.
I love that.
That was beautiful. So, and then that begs a question, because so you were raised, you know, you basically told us how you were raised. You know, you were raised in a certain type of environment that seems to have been very beneficial for you growing up. How has everyone else's environment, parentally speaking, if that's a term, how has that affected how you see relationships and how you've experienced your own relationships? Because I will say, I would be the first to say, I want to answer this myself. I had a lot of work to go through, or to, you know, to work through, essentially. And I hate to put my mother's business out there, but my mother is still in a toxic relationship of like 17 years at this point, maybe like 13, 14 years. And I grew up in my teenage years watching her with a toxic man who belittled her, you know, and she was 1,000, or is rather, a 1,000% submissive to this man, despite his ability, you know, his inability rather to lead. So in growing up, I watched that, and my thought was, I will never be, and I hate to say this, but I grew up looking at my mother as a weak woman, because she dealt with so much, and, you know, she couldn't leave, or she tried to leave, she, you know, would come right back, and she took abuse in every form possible. And I hope she's not watching this. If she is, I'm sorry. But, you know, I have to be real and say that really shaped how I approach relationships now. So now I tend to be, you know, more controlling. I set healthy boundaries, but sometimes those healthy boundaries, you know, to your point, Ella, I don't maybe give the grace, pun intended, that you know, I always got to say that. I don't always give the grace and the room to grow, you know, that's necessary. I do after the fact, always, because I'm so introspective, I do my shadow work. But in that moment, it gets really hard to do that, because you get to a point where you're triggered. You know what I mean? Yeah. Your boundaries, it's like somebody is ricocheting off your boundaries when you notice certain habits and certain behavior that is reminiscent to what I saw growing up, essentially. So that's my work. That's my shadow work. And learning how to not grow bitter. And it's interesting because I've been in emotionally abusive relationships myself in the past, and yet I never really grew bitter off of those relationships. But yet whenever I think back to my mother's relationship, that's the one that really shapes any type of, you know, negative traits that I approach relationships with now. So I don't know, like I said, that's the work that I have to, you know, that I am currently doing myself, but it's tough because, like I said, how do you balance trying to love yourself and maintain those boundaries and not, you know, activating a fight or flight response whenever you're triggered for the smallest thing?
Yeah.
Anybody else have any take on that?
I was just gonna say
Um,
on a good point right there that like
mhm.
we tend to go to extremes. So I just wanted to
Yeah.
say like,
Yeah.
you know, you touched on your childhood and how that kind of makes you teeter to one extreme, but we're all here to come into balance, and like that's perfectly normal. Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah, I was gonna say, just share from the household that I grew up in. I had a stepfather, and I still talk to my real father. Me and him are close, but I grew up in a household with my stepfather and my mother, and my stepfather, he was a leader. He led. He took care of the household, the bills, but he was like 1 second from being a ticking time bomb and just exploding. Like one little thing would just like explode him. And I
Wow.
really feel like that carried with me as far as like triggers now. Like if a male wants to raise his voice, you know, I'm triggered. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just like, hold up. And, you know, I would say just moving forward, how to move past that. But my mom did get out the relationship, and you know they co-parent, but they have separate homes now. But when I was growing up in that situation, it was extremely toxic, and I don't ever want to be in that situation myself, you know, and I want to stay like far away from it. But how I balance now is I just try to communicate a lot better with men, especially Black men, on how to express themselves to me, in a manner that I can receive. You know, so I'm not feeling triggered and thrown off and just like, I don't want to listen to you because of how you're talking to me. You know, let me just rearrange this for you so that me and you can be on the same page and you understand why you can't talk to me this way. You understand why you have to go about things the way that you go about it with me, because I'm not going to accept anything else.
Anything less, right. So that begs the question, what is your definition of the divine masculine man?
The divine masculine man. Listen, okay, I love men. They are like candy to me, regardless of what I have been through in the past. I know that's the individual male. I never like to carry that into anything else. I take the lessons, but I don't like to say, oh, every man's gonna be this way because of that.
Right,
So
right.
no. So what I have seen and experienced in a divine masculine male is just like complete. You'll be surprised, like they can be very nurturing as well when they're balanced in their masculinity, nurturing and protective, you know,
Yes.
and everything's covered. They know how to express what they don't like and what they do like, just simply like, no, I don't like that. Let's try something else. You know, they're not like over the top where they're, you know, just raging or something, you know? So I've just seen a balanced masculine male really be able to express himself and balance his energy, and again be that protector and a nurturer, and make sure everything is handled and covered. If there's something that he doesn't like, it's just so easily and simple for him to say. It's not some big deal, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I have witnessed.
Well, like,
Yeah.
you know, I think with that, like everything Divinity just said, like so coincided with what the definitions that I saw of Yang were. And I loved how you were like, you tell me and I'll rearrange it so it works. That's literally what it is. Like, you know, for men, for the masculine, one of the images is a straight line. Like, this is how I see it. This is how I see it. And then for women, it's for the feminine, it's a broken line. And for me, that just says, and you know, circular energy is kind of also what I saw associated with the feminine, and that just, it's that flexibility that comes with it. But for the masculine, you know, that it's light, it's doing, and I think for me, what my definition of that is a male who can be action oriented, but still, well, a male who can know the difference between aggression and assertive. I think.
Yeah.
I think for me, that's the simplest way to define it. Because just because you're aggressive doesn't mean you're assertive. And you can be assertive without being aggressive.
Exactly.
And some of the most aggressive men are the weakest, most emotional men as well. You know? So aggression actually is a front, you know. It doesn't necessarily mean, it doesn't coincide with like strength, for example. So no, that's 1000% true.
Yeah. And I feel like what Divinity was touching on a lot of, which is like the feminine is often called the like chaotic energy, right? Because we are just this like free flowing, you know, women are free flowing. We like to flow. We like to just be in flow. And our energy is very, it's creative energy. Like when you think of a creative person, right? They're kind of scattered. The energy is like this, right? But the masculine actually comes and creates like a structure. And so this is what's important, because the structure doesn't, what some might call in polarity containment, it doesn't squish the feminine. No. It's there to provide containment, which actually
containment, yes.
Like protection in a sense too.
Protection. Contain her energy. And that's where actually that sense of safety comes from. Like at the root of every very like feminine woman, she wants that feeling of safety, of like someone has my back, like I can lean back and someone's there, right? I think Divinity was also touching a lot on the fact that women are more emotional and men, or feminine energy is more emotional and kind of somewhat reactive, but that's just how we are. We're here to express, whereas masculine can be very logical in a way that I appreciate. Like when I'm pre-mooning or like on my moon time, it's like, yes, please be direct, order the dinner, whatever, you know, like I don't want to
handle it.
Like, yes, be logical, direct. I'm over here talking in circles and they're over there being logical, you know, like, and that energy is very, very needed. And like, I know I appreciate it. And I think that's how we can keep the balance, to go back to your other question. It's like appreciating the masculine. Like the masculine energy needs to be appreciated.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with that.
I'm sorry, Grace. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was saying, like, I love how you said it like that, because one thing about me that really resonated when Grace told me when we were talking about the topic was, for me, growing up, literally until probably 2 years ago, the word feminine was a curse word to me. Like, oh yeah. For people who don't know,
I said, explain that. How so?
Like
okay, so you know,
like that?
like because in my mind it was so cut and dry, and I didn't want to be seen as a girly girl, a crybaby, anything like that, because I wanted to be a soldier. I mean, at one point in my life I wanted to be an assassin, and now, you know, I work in athletics, which is very, very masculine energy, and so I spent most of my life thinking that feminine was a curse word. And then I'm gonna go to my faith a little bit, but I started doing a study on the book of Esther in the Bible. And the thing about Esther, besides it is literally the only book in the Bible that does not mention God outright, is that it took the femininity of a woman to stop the genocide of an entire people. She didn't go to her husband and was like, okay, look, this is what you got to do. You ain't killing my people, blah, blah, blah. No, she had to stop. She had to listen, and she did things the way she had to do it, in that structured way. You have to wait for the king to hold out his scepter to you for you to talk and all that. But by her doing that and being submissive, she was even more powerful. And that resonated really deeply with me doing that study, not only spiritually, but it made me stop and take a look at myself, because in relationships, one thing I always said was, you know, I've had narcissists, and in relationships, I've always had to take care of the person in some way, shape, or form. And when I changed my mind about that, my interactions with men changed. And it did get to that point of that whole I love the chaos contained in a container, so I can feel comfortable going, okay, I'm about to be completely illogical and completely irrational, and I'm going to say some crazy things. And then for him to go, okay, say it. And then go,
Right.
okay, but why are we doing that? So let me be crazy and then bring me back down to earth is just, it makes so much of a difference, because in other relationships, I was never emotional because I couldn't be, because I had to take care of them emotionally.
Yeah.
So you're essentially saying, give me room to be crazy. And I 1000% agree with that.
I love it. It's freeing. It is so freeing.
It's halfway in jest, but really, that chaotic energy, quote unquote, that they say we have, that creative energy is chaotic energy. It's free form. That's what it is. This entire world was created off of that free form, chaotic energy.
Yes.
So you need to let that energy be, because when you construct it, that's when you have destruction. So to Ella's point, which you put it so beautifully, that containment is necessary, and how Sherelle just expounded on that. Yes, give me the room to be crazy. Give me the room to be chaotic. Give me a safe space to grow in that, and you will get literally the best version out of me when you know how to. But you know what the problem is? A lot of men don't even know how to control their own emotions for them to even be able to be a containment for another person's emotions.
They
So
wasn't
that's
taught.
the problem.
They were not taught how to do so. Where have just collectively, and even as Black men, where have they been taught to do that? We really have to look back and research, how has society structured our men?
Yeah.
And our men were following something that was not of them. And I've talked about this a lot. We've talked about this a lot, y'all. Like how, especially our Black men, like they say they were following something void that was not natural to them. How we're structured in society, with just from having family and birthing and growing and attaining money, generational wealth, we weren't taught. Black men weren't taught. So us as the women, the healers that we are, we're going back and we're getting that information. Saying Kofa, if y'all heard it, we go back and we get it, and we have to bring it to our men, our communities, ourselves, all of that. Is it work? Yes. It's hella work. Is it tough? Yes, it can be. But now that we've shifted into this higher consciousness as a collective, this is one of the top things that we have to do. Personally, how I feel, just as our community, as Black women, as the healers that we are, help our men, bring our men back to a more natural state of being where they can help balance with us. They were not taught for generations how to do so.
Yeah.
That is so, when you were talking, I know y'all probably saw all my crazy faces as that was going on, because I tie this thing to everything, because in America, as a Black person, so much of what we are doing today in 2021 is tied to this one letter. I'm gonna mention it every time. The Willie Lynch letters. The Willie Lynch, especially as you were talking about how our men weren't taught to be that way. It's because, once again, years ago, it was broken down to the point that we weren't supposed to respect them, because we were expected as women, Black women, to lean on the master, the white man. So, when all of that is said and done, I think sometimes with men and the toxic masculinity that we see, it's because they're fighting against that old notion that women are supposed to be looking at them as though they're weak. And unfortunately, in our society, being able to express or even understand your emotions is considered too soft. And that goes against what they're trying to establish, which is, again, kind of that male dominance that was taken away from them when our people were brought here.
And this is where the shift in the higher consciousness comes in. For it, especially for us, I feel like so many women, and I want to say it's just especially Black women, we're getting these downloads. We're correcting our DNA structure. We're moving past all of that. We're healing so much, And you know that just all ties in together. You know, we're getting that information again on how to, like I said before, just balance with our men, and we're teaching them. So we have a lot of work to do.
Oh, and I think that's where that grace, no pun intended, and well, pun intended. That's where that and that patience and that allowing. Literally, this was the term when I researched it. Room for error. You know, like just allowing that room for error with the men, because especially the Black men, the same way we talked about needing to go to extremes, I feel like most people are like that, right? Like you realize you're way out of whack in one area and then you go to the other extreme, or as a coping mechanism, we go to the other extreme. So what I was hearing when you both were speaking was about the fact that Black men, they need to go to a space where they can just cry and be weak, because they never got to express that. And I think kind of that's what we've been in for a while, is like, and kind of what many are just going into now, maybe with the whole pandemic and stuff, is like allowing that space for them to grieve and to express those feelings that for so long in so many households, you know, boys were suck it up, boys don't cry, you know, kind of giving them that space to grieve and be sad and be a little weak. And then like Divinity spoke about, it's like, then we're coming here to really activate them. And I think I've seen some women post, and it's a little controversial, about, you know, it's not our job to raise these men. It's not our job. It's not our job.
I've seen that.
Okay.
But who's gonna help us?
Yeah, but it's like when it comes to leadership, I like to think of it as an honor, because like I said, the women, we are the rulers of the energetic and the spiritual. The men are the rulers, are the masters of the physical. That's why they can create and produce. So with that being said, I think all of us on this call know what is the stronger foundational energy, the spiritual. So we have to start there. So we have to start.
So I have a question to what you just said. As far as giving men room to be sensitive, to cry, which I wholeheartedly agree with. What do you think about, because this is pretty controversial as well, a lot of men who, especially in you know, our generation as millennials, a lot of the men are now perceived as too weak, too sensitive. They're perceived as punks because all they do is emote and complain and nag, and they're a little too in touch with their feminine properties. And I'll be the first to admit, I'm not even attracted, Sherelle, I see you. I'll be the first to admit, I'm not even attracted to a guy who's too feminine, if I'm being perfectly honest. But here's the thing, and this goes into what I was telling you ladies about last week, as far as me saying that my type is an alpha male with a beta heart. So again, like that's the balance that Sherelle was just signaling a moment ago. But it's like, I wholeheartedly believe in providing space for a man to be emotional within private, within me. But when you have men that are a part of our generation who are too sensitive and, you know, they can barely hold their own, what do you have to say about that and finding balance from that end of the scale?
Alyssa, I've dealt with a Cancer.
Yeah.
You said, oh, Cancers are no joke. Oh my God. Cancers and Pisces.
Cancer
and I'm a Pisces,
men
so I
are
know.
no joke. I didn't. Oh my God, I didn't know. I didn't, but now I
didn't know.
But now I know.
Ideally,
You sound recent.
just clarify that ideally men taking that stage or that period would be done out of relationship. Now, this is not a perfect world, but ideally I feel like men would go through that initiation and phase, not while leading a woman in a romantic relationship, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. That makes sense. Absolutely. Oh, so I actually, did you have something you want to say, Divinity?
Oh no, I was just agreeing.
Now, I wanted to actually, I reposted this on Facebook like last week, or no, just 3 days ago. I want to give her a shout out, Tia Taylor. But I want to read her description of the divine masculine man because it resonated with me as it relates to the divine feminine. She put, the omnipotent man understands, accepts, and embraces femininity in its entirety. He does not try to water down femininity. That is all of intuition, wisdom, freedom, liberation, chaos, creation, destruction, flow, fertility, spontaneity, fun, nurturing, gentle, forceful, calm, fierce. Like the tides of water is the true nature of femininity. He understands this. He does not try and staple femininity to the part that makes him comfortable. He embraces the challenge of uncomfortability, studies it, strategizes it, and attacks it. His aim is to win. He is divinely masculine. He fears no challenge. He creates a safe space for the divine feminine to relax and rest in femininity. As mentioned before, the omnipotent man does not have to guilt, shame, belittle, or manipulate to be heard and respected. He doesn't even have to ask. The energy flows with him. His energy commands adherence and subservience. So that is what really resonated with me. It was lengthy, but it resonated.
It resonates, all right. Yes.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
I think that's
absolutely.
what, being able to do that, I think, you know, it goes back to that's what makes a good leader for me. You know, one thing I absolutely, my favorite person, one thing I absolutely love is that my favorite person is silent. But
You said silent?
he don't talk to nobody. He don't talk. But but
okay. That's okay.
but exudes that, I mean, obviously he's not perfect, but definitely seeing him exude that masculine energy the right way. Because again, I have said to everybody that's ever met me, there are two things with testicles on this planet that can get me to do what they ask me to do. Two. One of them is my father. And the other one is my favorite person.
Hey, I like how you calling him your favorite person, though.
Right.
I mean, your favorite person. He said 2 men with testicles. No, but I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ella.
I was just gonna say that's beautiful because I learned this framework of like what men kind of need at their core. You know how women and men have different needs, and it was something I saw from a dating coach I follow. Her name is Leslie Tavernier, and she said men need trust, appreciation, respect, and acceptance. And I just, when you call him your favorite person, it's like it really exudes that like appreciation and like admiration that you have for him. So I bet that if he watched this, like he would just be, it would feed the male ego, which is something that is for another
It's
time.
needed.
But
It's needed, but that's okay.
need that.
We all have an ego that needs to be fed at the end of the day. That's human nature. You know, people look at the ego, and sometimes, you know, the ego, when it's imbalanced, is, you know, it gets into a whole negative realm. But yeah, feeding a man's ego, I love feeding a man's ego. Absolutely. And it genuinely, you know, and I do. I love making my man feel good, feel respected, feel appreciated, like you just said, you know, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And at the end of the day, as a woman, I want that as well. You know, I want to be respected and loved and cherished and appreciated, and even worshiped. So no, I wholeheartedly understand. Yeah, I had to say worship. That's real.
Yeah, that's the,
Don't call me goddess for nothing.
I'm with it.
yeah.
Yeah, I know, you know. Exactly.
Worship.
So sorry, go ahead, Ella.
I was just saying worship. I love that. And I love cherish too. Cherish is a big.
Cherish is the softer version of worship. So I'll take cherish, but worship, you know, like I said, they don't call me goddess for nothing. So I guess my question is, with all of this being said, even to your point, Sharella, going back to the Willie Lynch letter, because it's generational, this issue, where do we even begin? And I almost feel like just in even having this conversation, I'm like, dang, we're missing some men. Like, we should have had some men in this conversation.
Oh my gosh, this would be so great.
I think we need to do a part 2 with some men.
Part two.
I really do think we need to do a part 2 with some men involved, because like, and that's one thing that I just noticed as we were speaking, as great of a conversation this is, and I think we are all very well balanced women. We're not one-sided women. Like, we don't participate in the men versus women conversation, you know, so we're very well balanced, each and every one of us. Yeah. But even with that being said, like, I'm missing a man's opinion in this as it relates to bridging that gap and healing that gap that is out in the world between men and women. So we may have to do that, you know, like I said, a part 2.
We will.
I can't speak for men, but I think part of it could be a trust thing.
In what regard?
You know how we're talking about as women, you have to be able to lead me in order for me to submit to you. So I have to trust that you can lead me. From what I see, and again, I'm coming from a standpoint of younger, I mean, of course, my age group, but, you know, I work with teenagers, and I absolutely believe the children are our future. And what I'm seeing is I'm watching these young teenage boys develop trust issues with women that lead them to be the men that we don't want leading us, because when they are, you know, sensitive enough to share this and this and this with you, when y'all get in an argument, especially with the social media age.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why blah, 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 blah. That's why your daddy locked up, blah, blah, blah. And then, I can't tell nobody nothing. And then that happens enough. And then we get, again, emotionally imbalanced men that we feel like we have to balance. And that's where I think the trust part comes in.
It's a vicious cycle, and it's like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? It's one of those type of conversations. But it, you know, it doesn't matter. Somebody needs to start the healing. I feel like the healing, though, is going to come within individual partnerships. I don't think there's a way that we can heal collectively, publicly. It has to start at home. It has to start with the personal commitment from man to woman, or, you know, and just in regards to this specific conversation, it's going to have to start at home. And it's going to have to spread from there. Not only that, it's also going to have to start with accountability in friend groups.
Oh, yeah.
That's another big thing. Yeah. I think women, no, that's kind of half and half now that I think about it. I was going to say women tend to hold each other accountable. My group of friends tend to hold each other accountable. I can't necessarily say that publicly. But for both sexes, for both genders, we're going to have to definitely learn how to hold each other accountable. Men and women don't hold each other, you know, their friends accountable enough. If a man is, I saw a quote on social media the other day. It says something to the effect of, and I'm sorry if this is triggering, but sexual abuse. It says everybody has been raped, but no one knows a rapist, or something of that sort. And they were referring to men holding their friends accountable for like rape culture type activities or talk, you know, verbiage, things of that nature. So just all around, I think we need to really hold each other accountable in our individual friend groups. I think that would prove very, it would help progress a lot in that sense as well.
So be like, so when sis tripping, be like, sis, that's
right.
That's not cool.
And
Don't
same for the
treat
men.
him like that. You know?
That's my favorite thing. Call my friends, hey, am I wrong? And then they're like, you want the truth or a well-crafted lie? Tell me the truth. You're wrong. You're wrong. And I appreciate friends that do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I feel like that's true sisterhood. And I think that could be part of what's missing and what I do hear and see a lot, which is brotherhood. I mean, you know how we hear the term toxic masculinity? Well, with all of the research and the initiation I've been doing, diving into the divine masculine energy, I figured out it's not actually toxic masculinity. What it is a lack of masculinity. There's no such thing as toxic masculinity. When masculinity is present, it is king, it is exalted, it is divine.
I agree with that.
And when there's a lack of masculinity, that's when it's in that wounded kind of, you know, what there's a lack. But when masculinity is present, there's leadership, there's direction, there's containment, there's safety, there's, you know, providing, there's that solid energy. And so when I started,
so wait, when there's a lack, I don't mean to interrupt you, but when there's a lack of masculinity, what is left? Femininity? And is that the problem?
No.
Is femininity the problem?
No, I mean,
I would think it's that aggression stuff, like covering it up.
What energy does that fall in? Does that categorize, like, if it's not masculinity? And masculinity is already outward.
Maybe overactive in some ways, like the aggression may be overactive, hyper, versus being imbalanced, or
wouldn't that be imbalanced masculinity then? Instead of toxic, imbalance would be.
I think it would just be imbalanced energy.
Generally speaking.
Yeah, generally, because, you know, I think if you're a man, unless you've been taught young, unless you had like rites of passage, or you had a father who was ignited and exalted in his divine masculine energy, you're not going to know what it is. So it's kind of like an empty box in a way. That's where I'm seeing imbalanced energy or a lack of energy even. But I was just gonna say that, like, I feel like men need true brotherhood. You know, like, I feel like what we were talking about was like, we have true sisterhood. We have women, we can be like, hey, are you seeing what I'm seeing, or am I off here? Or women that we know will come to us and be like, hey, you're off the mark, you know? And I always say that, like, I know people appreciate me because I'm that friend who will tell you the truth. And I
say something right.
For me, I've always said, if you can't tell me straight, I can't consider you a friend. What kind of friend lets a friend like be in the error, or possibly, you know, be in a type of energy that is not for their highest and well-being? I don't think that's friendship. And I feel like with men, it tends to be more casual, you know, but we need more of those like ignited masculine circles of like true brotherhood, where they can hug and they can cry and they can, you know, show affection, and also be like, hey bro, actually what you're doing with her is not okay. Or, you know, like you said, hold each other accountable.
Yes, now, I have seen a rise in male healing circles now. I have seen it starting to go around, just maybe they need a getaway, or like maybe a camping trip, or I wouldn't call them like male circles, you know, whatever they would like to call them for that suits them best, you know. But I have seen a rise in just like the men coming together to remove stress and trauma and heal. So I am very proud and happy to see that just within the communities, because I haven't seen it before. I would say I just started seeing this maybe like 3-4 years ago.
I was going to say 2-3 years ago.
Right.
And I've only seen it in Atlanta, to be perfectly honest. I don't think I've seen it anywhere outside of Atlanta.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm from California. I've lived all over the place. And yeah, I don't really, not on a large scale anyway. It seems like culturally, Atlanta's really progressing in that regard, as far as like the men's circles or the brotherhood circles or what have you. No, that's an excellent point. And I'm happy for that, because even me, like with hosting retreats and things of that nature, I would love to put on either like a couples healing retreat, or just like a divine masculine retreat where men could get together and heal and things of that nature. Like, that's on my list to do one day, because I do feel like women are doing all this healing. So what, we can deal with the basic man? No, like the men need to be on their own healing as well. You know what I mean?
They got to step in with us.
I need to somehow, or I want to somehow provide space for that to happen. But yeah, so I have one last question, and it's just a little fun question, but what public divine couples do you guys see as great examples in the media, or like I said, public figures, or, you know, what couple makes you go, that's where I want to be?
I don't remember their name, but I think it's called Black Raw something. I don't know, but they both have locks and they're both really fit. And
I don't think I've heard of them.
He has like a bang with locks and long. I wish I could pull up a picture, but I don't even remember their name. But I just know that when I see them and they have kids together and they have their businesses and they're both, you know, they've been working out and taking care of their body, all of that. I'm just like, y'all are doing it.
It's so divine.
Amazing, you know, like, I love it. I love to see it. So yeah. I gotta figure out their name. Pull them up.
That doesn't ring a bell to me. I would love to see them. I see you up there thinking, Sherelle. I have one.
I'm gonna say Tamia and Grant Hill.
Oh, that's a good one.
Because that thing has lasted through a musical career and an athletic career, and we know what can happen in both of those worlds. But no, I think it's that one, because to see him support his wife and not feel intimidated by her success is, I just love watching them. They're just pretty people. I mean, they're Canadian, so they're naturally nice. But
those Canadians, right? You got anybody, Ella?
Yeah, I love, and I just found out we have some of the same astrology placements, which makes sense. But what's her name? It starts with a T, and her husband is Iman. He was a basketball player, but now
Tiana Taylor and Iman Shumpert.
I love them.
I love them. I love her.
Yes.
But and then when I saw them in an interview together, and like the baby was like crawling over the couch, and like
Little Junie.
Oh, I love them. Like she talked about how that they finally got together. He had like had an injury and she was like, no one was taking care of him. He was over there, not and she came over and like took care of him, and then they ended up together. And I just, when you see them, if you just see like an interview of them, they're
kindred spirits.
yeah, and they're a power couple. I mean, just like you said, like she's doing her thing and he's not intimidated by it. Like they made a song together. Like he was saying how, yeah, a lot of people don't know I do music, and seeing them make music together showed me how like the feminine can really ignite the masculine, like to where, you know, he was doing basketball, but then he's like, well, I actually want to do music too. Like, you know,
Right.
they're just, I love them. They're so sexy.
Can you see?
Oh,
Oh,
ooh,
wow.
they're a beautiful couple.
Ooh.
Holy.
And they have children together, and every time, like they have 3 kids, I believe 3 or 4, and just every time I see them, they're just, I'm like, whew, y'all.
Yes.
They're beautiful.
I'm already inspired. I only saw a picture. Sheesh.
Right?
I do have a couple as well. Ace Hood and his wife. I want to say her name is Shayla. What's her name? Shayla?
I can't remember her name, but she is so supportive of her man.
Yeah, and she's dope in her own right too. So wait, I have 2. Them, and then my latest couple obsession is he's Nigerian. He has Nigerian ancestry. I want to make sure I get his last name correct. Toby Nwingwe.
Oh,
And his wife Fat.
yes.
That's really what they call her, like Fat or something. You know who I'm talking about?
Would be like my top 2, Tiana Taylor and then them. They're everything.
They are.
Even like the way they co-create together and do music together and family, and in his songs you'll hear him like, if you're not paying for my wife and kids to come, I'm not coming. I'm like, that's
He brags, and you can tell how much pride he has in his wife, and not just his wife, but his family in general. Like you hear his wife on his songs all the time, like they collab all the time, and their whole energy is about family. They were just on the cover of was it Ebony magazine? They were just on the cover of some large platform, and they were together. It was actually him, I believe, his mother, her, and their kids on the cover, and that's exactly what they stand for. So they're a faith-based, but he's hip hop and he's Nigerian in nature, and their whole push is family. So I'm just like, I absolutely love everything that they stand for. They are a beautiful couple. So yeah, them, and like I said, Ace Hood and his wife is would be my top ones. And then
Barack and Michelle.
I was gonna say that. I was gonna say don't judge me, but I was gonna say Barack and Michelle, and yes, I would say Jay-Z and Beyonce. I can't lie. Y'all may not agree, but I see Beyonce as in like, okay, because Jay-Z seems like, look at Sherelle's face.
Because what's really going on? That's all I gotta say.
Okay.
That part. I want to know. I'm nosy.
I can only speak from like, what we see. I'm not going to go into any conspiracies or anything like that. But Jay-Z, he's clearly an alpha male, right? That's obvious. But I feel like Beyonce is the anchor, is the powerful, divine, feminine woman in that relationship. I feel like behind closed doors, Beyonce rules. I don't want to say rules, but Beyonce leads that relationship, and she allows her man to lead publicly. That's what it seems like to me. Now, I can be wrong, and if I'm wrong, I will take that. But my point in saying that is that's the type of relationship that I love. That's ideal to me, because the woman has a certain amount of power in the relationship, but also submits to the man and protects his image in the public as well. And that's something that I highly respect. So I know y'all are judging me after that comment, but
No.
Honestly, it's funny because that's the exact energy that Divinity was referring to when she said, I want to be my own person and you can be your own
exactly
too. They're the prime example of that, because Beyonce already built her empire, and then Jay-Z had his empire, and they came together and they both have empires. So that's that.
Yes.
Beyonce has that energy of sovereignty that she will, I mean, think about it. If Jay-Z was gone tomorrow, Beyonce would still be Beyonce. And that's the key right there.
And that's amazing to me.
That is the
yes.
major key. Yes.
Major key. Well, Ladies, I really, really enjoyed this conversation. I don't want to take up people's time like all night, but this was a very needed conversation. Like I said, I would love to do a part 2 with at least a couple of men involved, because I do believe in balance, and I do want to open up and create space for, you know, to have these conversations together. So if you all are willing to come back at some point, I would love to have you. You all are super duper duper amazing. And I cannot forget to plug our event. So does anybody else, because I'm tired of talking, does anybody else want to talk about the Goddess Gathering that's coming up?
Well, I'll talk.
That's already sold out, by the way.
Manifest and Thrive, New Movement
Yes.
Cancer. Let's get it.
And it's already sold out, so we can't promote it too much, because all you can do at this point is get on the waiting list. And
Right?
Place to be.
Yes, so
Great place to be, because we're going to be doing more events. So
yes,
larger events too. So
yes.
to be in the know.
yeah.
Yes, we have a lot planned for this summer. So the goddessmovementcommunity.com. It's in my profile, and it's, you know, you can find it easily, and also the Goddess Movement on Facebook. Be sure to like that page. And yeah, stay in tune with each and every one of us. Really quickly, Sherelle's website is allinspiring.com, A-W.
.org.
Oh, I'm sorry, .org. awinspiring.org. Ella, remind us of your website.
Just send me a DM. I'm on Facebook and Instagram under Ella Alexandria Love.
Ella Alexandria Love. And then Divinity, what's your website one more time?
My website is shrineofdivinity.as.me. That's where you can book for services. And besides that, you guys can just follow me on Instagram. I share all the updates and creative content on there too. I'm on Instagram at shrineofdivinity_.
Yes, thank you, ladies, again. It was a pleasure having you, and I hope to see everyone soon. thegoddessmovement.com. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.